Good morning. It's terrific to attend the Welcome Conference once again this year. It's very exciting. That was a very insightful speech by Mr. Ells, and I think our next guest will be equally informative. Particularly proud to introduce her, Sarah Robbins, who we had the great foresight to hire at Myriad Restaurant Group as a manager trainee back in 1995. Sarah came to us directly out of the Cornell Hotel School as, yes, pretty darn impressive, huh? I think Will Gadara and maybe a guy named Drew Newport came from there too. But also, she came to us from the US military, where she was a second lieutenant in the US Army. And I remember our interview, I'm sorry, I'm going to embarrass you here. But I remember our interview very, very well. As someone who you would expect would be in the US Army, she answered my questions very thoughtfully, thoroughly, succinctly, including the one where I asked her if the outfit that she was wearing was a military uniform. To which she responded with her head back and a big smile and said, "No, it's a suit that my mom bought me specifically for this interview." So I knew right then and there I had someone with the right stuff. I took my foot out of my mouth, offered her a job, and thankfully she said yes. So Sarah moved quickly up through the ranks of our company. She became a manager at Tribeca Grill, and then she went on to work with us on many of our consulting projects, including the restaurants that we developed with the very first W hotels here in New York and Seattle. She also worked with us on numerous projects with Interstate Hotels, Marriott, a number of our own projects, including Nobu Las Vegas and Layla. And then in, I think it was 2005, we were hired to develop a restaurant, which we named Proof on Main, down in Louisville, Kentucky, for a new hotel called 21C Museum Hotels, which is short for 21st Century. And it was really a very unusual project. The owners who were looking to help revitalize the local community down in Louisville also had a tremendous passion for American contemporary art. And along with that, they had an incredible collection of art, which they installed in the hotel and the restaurant, and really brought really helped make Louisville both a culinary and a cultural destination. Sarah, who worked with us on the project, decided to remain in Louisville after that as she was raising a young family, and stayed on with 21C, where she's now the Senior Vice President of Operations for the company and a partner as well. And she oversees all of the food and beverage establishments and is currently overseeing the design and creation for 5 new hotels that they are doing in the next 2 to 3 years. So congratulations to you on that, Sarah. It's always it's always wonderful to see somebody you work so closely with that is deserving to achieve such great success. Sarah today is going to be speaking to you about how being right means saying yes at 21C, and I just want to thank Sarah for saying yes to us at Myriad Restaurant.
21C.
21C.
21C. 21C.
21C.
21C.
21C.
21C.
21C.
21C.
21C.
21C. 21C is
Unique.
authentic,
Individualistic.
Fantastic.
Pistachio.
Is unexplainable.
Unexpected.
original,
Incredibly diverse.
Honest.
Not sure.
Different.
Definitely fun.
21C is awesome.
It's not a hotel. It's something more.
It's a way of life. That is what 21C is, a way of life.
It's the culture. It's what 21C is, it's an idea.
Not only do we just have good art and good food, we got good hospitality and good service.
There's more you can do than that you can't do.
It's just not your ordinary hotel. It's not your ordinary place.
It combines the two things that I love, art and hospitality.
I never seen any place like this.
You forget when you're here 6 days a week how cool this place is.
You can sleep with art. I usually just sleep with cats.
It's not meant to be understood. It's not meant to be explained. It's just meant to experience.
Oh, now I get it.
Nobody's one and the same. We're not cookie cutter in any way whatsoever.
You come to 21C, you yourself. You give yourself to the guests and they get to see you, your personality, what you have to bring to the table.
The art is good, the art is fine, but it's the interesting people that we have here at 21C.
We're treated like family, treat each other like brothers and sisters. Never a dull moment.
We're super serious about the work that we do, but nobody takes themselves seriously.
We don't have to wear a uniform, so you get to express yourself.
You can literally be yourself.
We live in the land of
Yes.
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 We are a yes hotel.
There's always a way to say yes.
It may be crazy, it may be outlandish, it may be everywhere in between, but yes, why not?
Yes is positive. Yes is open to possibility.
You know, we find a way to make it possible and make it happen for the guests.
Yes, it's not just with the guests. Yes, it's also with each team member.
There's no way that we're going to be able to achieve saying yes to the guest without starting it with how we treat each other.
Treat this as if this is your house. You come in and whatever they need, you get it because we want to make them feel as welcome as possible. So we say yes to whatever they need.
The answer is yes. Now, what was the question?
I think the guests feed off of our energy and our attitude.
It's got to be a super experience for the people that are our guests.
I'm frankly living my dream. It sounds cheesy, but I never imagined that I would have a job like this in a place like this doing this. This is just what I'd always hoped for.
It makes it way more fun than just a normal job.
This is not a job. This is every day you go to work. No, you go up and get what adventure. Who will I see today? Who can I help today?
It's great to know that I feel like what I do every day matters.
Once you find something great, you stick with it. Why go anywhere else?
Thank you so much for having me. I think that we all are really familiar with this idea that the sweetest sound in any language is a person's name. And I'm not sure if I buy it. What if it said like this? I'm sorry, Mrs. Robbins, we cannot accommodate you. Or worse yet, I'm sorry, Mrs. Robbins, you may not have another cookie. I don't think it's so sweet. I think the sweetest sound in the world is yes. As children, we absolutely craved hearing this word from our parents. Yes, we can have a sleepover. Yes, we can keep a stray dog. As frisky adolescents and young adults, getting to yes. That was the goal for many of you, right? Maybe still today. Unfortunately, we're told no far too often and for seemingly sort of mind-boggling and sometimes arbitrary reasons. So as Marty said, being right at 21C is saying yes. And we say yes to the guest, and we say yes to each other. Of course, our goal is to make the guest happy, but that road is paved with saying yes within the team and saying yes to each other. This video that we just watched was created for our team. Honestly, it was meant to be sort of internal, and it was created for an annual teammate rally that we had last spring. We now show it to all of our new hires, and honestly, I don't think we could watch it enough. It makes me happy every time I see it. So 21C, as Marty said, it's a growing hotel brand. It was started by Laura Lee Brown and Steve Wilson, and they are contemporary art collectors and also preservationists that had this passionate belief that if you put thought-provoking art into communities, that you could transform them. So our properties have a contemporary art museum as part of them, combined with a boutique hotel and a chef-driven restaurant. And the art is so much about who we are and what we do. And it was really the art and Laura Lee and Steve's vision around the art that when we opened our first property in Louisville in 2006, so coming on 10 years, we really were inspired to lead our teams differently. My background is really far from the art world. I still don't consider myself in the art business. We've got a great team of people that do that. I had grown up in luxury resorts and high-end restaurants. And so in combining this idea of sometimes thought-provoking, sometimes provocative, sometimes humorous art into our hospitality culture was a little bit challenging at first, but it was so important that members of our team really embraced this idea that Lauralee and Steve had, which was about making contemporary art accessible at really at a pedestrian level. So when we were in the opening process, things were coming out of crates, and they were so dynamic and so creative, and more than anything, just so present. There was art everywhere. And what that art did, most importantly, was created this environment where we felt like we could just break a bunch of rules. And it also helped us really take ourselves a lot less seriously. So you saw in the video, there are little, they were red penguins. We have a different colored penguin now for each of our properties. And there are little red penguins that are, there were 40 of them, that are 4 foot high. And those penguins were just part of our opening exhibition for the Louisville property. But what ended up happening with the penguins was the guests really just started to have fun with them. And so the guests started out with, hey, we really grab one of those penguins. We'd love to have one seated at our table, which then morphed into, hey, do you think you could put one of those in my hotel room? Which then, of course, quickly moved to, hey, you know what would be really funny is, can you put one of those in the shower of my friend's hotel room? So what the penguins did was allowed this really, really playful spirit. And again, we didn't have to take ourselves super seriously. So there's an image that would be great to put up now of this adorable little guy. And this piece is really particularly special to me. I think it is adorable, by the way. Not everybody agrees with that. But this piece, so Lauralee and Steve have this beautiful farm, a bison farm outside of Louisville. And there's a terrific guy there named Joe. And Joe has been working for Lauralee and Steve for a long time. And Joe is a master craftsman, beautiful carpenter. But in addition to that, he also helps install the art in Lauralee and Steve's home. So when we were opening the Louisville property, he was part of the team that was helping install all of this art as we were putting the finishing touches on the hotel. And again, I didn't really have a ton of experience with contemporary art, so my mind was being blown every time something was coming out of a crate. And I walked over to Joe, and Joe is about as Southern as you can get. And I said, Joe, does anything surprise you anymore? And he said, ma'am, if that little critter, this was in the lobby, if that little critter right over there ran over here and gave me a hug, I would not be surprised. And Joe talks really slow. I sped that up because this is New York and we're on a time schedule here, but that took a little longer. So when that happened, I literally remember standing in the lobby and just thinking it was like I was hit over the head with a 2x4, and I just thought, things are gonna be really different here, and I was having so much fun. On top of that, so we can make him go, I mean, unless you all want to keep looking at him, but it's probably a little distracting. On top of that, Lauralee and Steve were new to the hotel business, and so things that were just like really ingrained in our psyche and rules that we thought we had to adhere to, Steve in particular really challenged. And one example I can give you is we were going through the process, you all will appreciate this, of picking what the server uniform is going to be. And so and this was 10 years ago, so there were like horrible options even, back then. It's gotten a lot better, but we had them all lined up, and he walked in, Steve has impeccable fashion, like head to toe, Steve McQueen, he totally rocks it out. And so he walked in and he said, I hate every one of them. So that, okay, we'll go back to the drawing board. And then he said, well, here's an idea. What if we did this? I was just in Paris, and their servers didn't wear any uniform, so what if we just don't put them in any uniform? And I was sitting there and like, okay, Paris and Louisville. In terms of fashion, yeah, those are probably about equal. And I said, I don't know about that. And so I then just decided, he was not gonna take no for an answer, but I thought, okay, Sarah, move outside of your comfort zone a little bit. Let's just do it and go for it and see what happens. And just because somebody's in a uniform doesn't mean they're not pulling it out of their bag and throwing it on and putting on an unpressed apron. So we said, let's gamble, and it's honestly one of the best decisions we've made. So, as Marty also mentioned, this was when my children, Louisville was opening as my children were growing up, and I had a 3 and a 5-year-old, 2 boys, and I felt like I was saying no all the time at home. Like, no, you may not have a bowl of sugar for breakfast. No, you cannot take my car apart to see how it works. And no, you two cannot jump off the roof onto the trampoline And I'm telling you, I have been asked every single one of those questions and many, many more. So I was, of course, saying no all the time. And just honestly, out of curiosity to see what would happen next, sometimes I would say yes. And their eyes would like pop out of their heads, like, yes, we can have ice cream for dinner. And you don't even have to wear shoes. And what's that? You want to bring the cat? Okay, grab Tiggy and we'll bring him too. We've done that many times, actually. And so what I found was that, again, just like the penguins, and just like all of this art and the beautiful little wombat that I showed you, it was also really helping me as a mother not take my life and my job as a mother so seriously. I realized that saying yes I was beginning to develop a taste for it. It was really fun, and something happened. There was something that moved on. The story didn't just end. As Marty said, I was also a captain in the Army, and to say that there are like SOPs, there's an SOP for how to tie a boot, that's a true story, and they had SOP for everything. And so what would happen between that, you know, I was training people. I wasn't like jumping out of airplanes or anything exciting, but I was doing a lot of training, and of course in our business, and doing a lot of training on that end too. And I found that for me, I made the mistake, I think, of focusing more on the rules and the policies and the procedure, and less about just making the guest happy. And I find that when you are training from that place, you end up training a bunch of people on your team who are terrified to make a mistake. And they end up working from a place of fear of failure. And as a leader, initially, it seems so much easier just to say no. It ends the conversation, be it with a guest, a vendor, or a teammate, or even like as a mom, no, because I said so. But it is also a response that's really full of fear of failure, of giving the wrong direction, or doing the wrong thing. And I think that if you are never prepared, and I totally stole this from some article, and I cannot remember, so I can't quote the article, but it was, if you're never prepared to be wrong, you're never going to do anything original. And it's those original moments, I think, that are the most memorable for people on our team, and therefore for the guest. But yes is a little riskier. You have to be a little fearless. But something then happens, and it really does become habit forming. And what ends up happening is it's a lot easier to continue to say yes to a guest if you know you've got a whole team of people that are equally as committed to saying yes as well. And it turns out that saying yes becomes the norm instead of the exception. And let's see, Eric Schmidt, Google's executive chair, says that saying yes is being willing to do something new, to make a difference in a life, and likely in another's as well. We are in the hospitality business, and so it's our job to make the guest happy by listening and being able to do something new and make a difference in a life. And I really find that unless we are really saying yes behind the walls of, you know, back in the kitchen and back in the back office, that unless we're saying yes to each other there, and the habit is absolutely to say yes, it will be really, really hard to say yes to the guest. In fact, it would be impossible. And I know what you're thinking. You all operate restaurants with long, long wait lists. You can't always say yes, and sometimes you have to say no. I think of Julian Van Winkle. That poor man has to say no like all the time. And he's like the least likely person to want to naturally do that because he's such a great guy. But like Julian, you know, I think how you say no really does make a difference. And it reminds me of a professor that I had who told this story about that there's no corresponding word no in Japanese because it would be sort of too rude. And there's not a direct translation. And so he was in Japan, and he was walking through these incredibly beautiful gardens, and he comes upon some vibrantly colored mushrooms. And he turned to his guide and he said, "These are amazing, are they edible?" And the guide, with like the biggest smile on his face, turns to him and said, "Yes, but they will kill you." So I think there is always a way to say yes for anybody who's a doubter out there. I think of that story all the time. So how does this yes culture really make a difference in the culture of what it's like to be at 21C? And maybe an obvious answer would be that we have high guest satisfaction scores, and it's a pretty fun place to be. And I'd like to think that both of those things are true. But there are two more subtle differences that I think just are things that make it as strong as it is. And one is the personal freedom. You heard a lot about, we didn't give our team a script. On the video or any other time when they're on property, they're really allowed to be themselves. And because we're coming from this art creative world, their personal expression is really up to them. There aren't a lot of rules about what they can and cannot wear. And again, as Steve had suggested that early on, it really does make an enormous difference to our team. And I think that when they have that personal freedom, they are much better about listening and learning, and it just happens naturally. So that's one. The second is near and dear to my heart. It's about first and second chances. And Steve talked about this a little bit in terms of his hiring process at Chipotle. And what I love about it is, I guess in general, like the easiest, when we're hiring, the easiest method to do it is the safest option. You make sure you hire somebody with a lot of experience that doesn't have any sort of a spotty background. And if somebody's on your team and they have 3 write-ups, and then get rid of them because they made a 4th mistake, and kind of cut your losses. But from a first chance perspective, giving somebody an opportunity to come into your environment and just say yes to them, as long as he said, it's all about the attitude. And then most importantly, when you have someone on your team that stumbles, they make a mistake, and they do something really, really stupid, whether it's in their personal life or actually on property. And that ability to say yes really does allow people to correct and overcome some of those past mistakes. And what we find, so we become this sort of land of second chances. And I think what's also particularly great is even if you're not the one that stumbled, if somebody on the team did, and they see that that person was given a second chance to be able to overcome that mistake, they actually benefit from that as well. And what ends up happening is you have this very, very loyal group of teammates. And it's also a hell of a lot more rewarding to give first and second chances than it is to give an opportunity to somebody who's already kind of been there and done that. So, as Marty said, we're about to open 5 more properties. We're going to double the size of our company. I feel a little silly having come from right after the Chipotle. Our numbers are like not even close, but we're still really excited and it feels really busy and good. And so how do you kind of keep that culture going? And so the 3 additional properties that we opened after Louisville, the key was really to make sure that there were some current members of our team who worked in the future properties, because that current member becomes such a believer in this culture because they are fiercely protective of it because it feels good to work in that environment. They're like this perfect little starter yeast that makes a great loaf of bread. So we find that it should be self-perpetuating because of everyone's fierce loyalty around it. Because saying yes is being right at 21C. Thank you so much.